Your 40s are your peak earning years. So whether it's happening right now, they've just passed, or they're looming on the horizon, this is your wealth building prime and you cannot afford to waste it. But this is the problem. The hard work that got you to this peak will not get you to the finish line of financial freedom. I've spent 15 years in finance, and the difference between people who retire early and comfortably and the people who work forever isn't the size of their salary. It's what they do with their salary. If you haven't mastered these money skills, you could be working for another decade more than you have to, understanding how money actually works. This is a very easy one to start sounding like a tinfoil hat-wearing lunatic. I'm not talking about the Rothschilds or any of those other crackpot conspiracy theories. I'm talking about the basics. Things like the power of compounding and what it can do for your finances, different kinds of debt, what inflation does to your money. All of these things will affect your finances, but you really have to understand how. And we're going to cover loads of it in this video. Take something simple like the rule of 72. You can divide 72 by the amount of time you want your money to double, and it will give you the rate of return you need in order for that to happen. When you understand concepts like this, you can be jumping into coins like Scrooge McDuck a whole lot faster if you understand money. You need to understand why 7% on £500,000 feels different than 7% on £5,000, or the difference between liquidity and solvency. Just because you have a high net worth doesn't necessarily make you rich. If you have zero cash flow, then you're in trouble. Knowing the difference between the two is key. Then there are other things like opportunity cost. Every pound you spend in your 20s could be worth £10 by the time you get to retirement. Without understanding these basic money principles, you will constantly be left in the dark and be left behind. You'll end up walking around trying to figure out what's best to do, like a dog trying to learn algebra. Risk management. When it comes to your money, risk is the sort of thing most people just do not understand. And the evidence tells us that humans are actually terrible at estimating risk. This is known as the inverse S-curve. It describes this kind of funhouse of mirrors view that our brain has of probability. In a perfect world, a 1% risk would feel like 1%, and a 90% risk would feel like a 90% risk. But plenty of studies show that our brains sort of bend these numbers. Our brains take tiny probabilities and inflate them. We think, that's a 1,000,000 to 1 shot, but it could be me. This is why people buy lottery tickets or pay £10 a month to insure their phone. The event is vivid and easy to imagine, so we overpay to protect against it. But on the other end of the scale, we treat near certainties as being up in the air or too vague. This kind of asymmetry in risk perception means people either take out no insurance at all, or they insure completely the wrong things. A perfect example is this. People will insure their new iPhone worth £1,000, but they won't take out critical illness cover or income protection. In all probability, your biggest asset is not your iPhone, it's your future earning potential. But one offers significantly more protection and protects against a much more devastating financial outcome. And when it comes to risk, we can stretch this even further. You might have a high-paid job as a master of the universe, but if you're in a high-expense household relying on a single income, that is a high risk. More money does not necessarily mean less risk. Avoiding fees. Let's be honest, there are entire industries kept afloat by fees. Early repayment fees, late fees, management fees, foreign exchange fees, and my personal enemy, the admin fee. Honestly, the people who sit there and come up with all these new kinds of fees, in my view, are a truly generational talent at being useless. And while all of the ones I've just mentioned seem bad, it's often the more invisible and pernicious fees, the ones that you've actually stopped looking at and don't pay attention to, that are the most damaging to your money. You, quite rightly, look at a 20% credit card interest rate or a £30 a month overdraft charge and think, God, that's a lot of money. These are loud, aggressive, upfront and in-your-face fees. But the real wealth killers, the ones that will really drain your finances, are the quiet ones. Take your pension, for example. A 0.5% management fee sounds trivial, but when compounded over 30 years, that tiny drag can swallow up 25% of your pension pot. And that's because you aren't just paying for a fee, you're sacrificing the compounded growth that money would have generated. These seemingly small fees over long time horizons can make a massive difference to your money. They are a handbrake on your finances, like trying to wade through mud in flippers. Learn how to talk about money. One thing I find is, between this channel and having worked in finance as long as I have, People ask me for money advice all the time. And to be honest, at the end of the day, it is one of the things I struggle with most, even with friends and family. But learning to talk about money is an absolutely key skill, which I must say I just haven't quite mastered yet. It's all about balance, giving information without giving too much away or prying too much into someone's finances. Maybe it's breaking the taboo around salaries with your co-workers, talking about inheritance with your parents, or trying to educate your children about money. And we also have to point out something important, that who you marry is one of the most important money decisions you will ever make. Marrying someone with a completely different attitude towards money or different financial goals sets you up for potential disaster. And I know, it is not the sort of sexy thing that you want to put on a Tinder profile, but it's something to think about. Big purchase discipline. Now look, in a world of Klarna, buy now, pay later, 0% finance and credit cards, making big purchases has never been easier, but has never been more dangerous, especially when you have Amazon Prime and it's even more convenient. It's easy to look at a monthly payment and think, yeah, I can afford that. And I must say, this baffles me. But at the end of the day, you need discipline to save for big purchases rather than financing them. So use the 1% rule. Any purchase over 1% of your annual income requires you to wait at least a week. You also need to look at the total cost of ownership, not just the monthly. Here's an example. If you lease a car, don't just look at the monthly payment. Look at the deposit, the payments, the maintenance across the whole term. Because don't forget, at the end of leasing a car, you don't actually own the car. Take my iPhone 13, for example. I've had it for years, the battery is on its way out, but for the most part, it does what I need it to. Is it really worth me spending 1,500 quid for a brand new iPhone? Is it going to be materially better? Probably not. And only real Apple go-getters, I bet, could even tell the difference. Learn to be practical with money. We live in an online world where you are told to optimize absolutely everything. Your sleep, your exercise, your diet, and most of all, your money. It can be absolutely exhausting. And while you should obviously try to optimize where it matters, you also need to know when to just settle for what's practical with your money. And because you will invariably reach a stage of just diminishing returns. Just put it like this. Is it worth ringing up every single provider in the country to try and save a fiver on your car insurance? No, probably not. Is it worth ringing one or two to get a better renewal quote? Absolutely. Is it worth driving 45 minutes to a petrol station to save 5p a litre? No, you'd probably use more fuel getting there. Learn when the extra effort is actually worth the reward. This sort of thing is just the behaviour of a maniac, the sort of person who eats their Christmas dinner in 10 minutes and then goes back to the shed at the bottom of the garden type stuff. And just to be clear, I'm not saying you shouldn't optimise, I'm just saying you need to know when it's worth it. One of the biggest problems I see over and over again is that people spend a disproportionate or inordinate amount of time on the things that barely move the needle with their money, but at the expense of the things that would actually make a difference to their finances. Earn more, don't just spend less. Now, I get the role that frugality should play in your finances, I really do. It's an important tool that I think gets a bad reputation of people foraging in bins for food and finger-wagging at anybody who dares to buy a coffee from a Starbucks. But you have to recognise the frugality ceiling. You can only cut your spending to a certain point, but your income is potentially uncapped. Use your energy to invest in yourself. It doesn't have to be an expensive qualification. It could be exercising or getting better sleep so you're sharper, learning to meditate to deal with stress, going to networking events, keeping your profiles up to date, getting headshot, or getting a professional qualification. And I am always a bit hesitant to discuss this topic because I recognise it is super dependent on what your job actually is. And the data shows that staying at the same company for more than a few years can decrease your lifetime earnings by up to 50%. This is called the jump strategy. It goes something like this. Basically, internal pay rises will usually be capped by HR, maybe 3 to 5% to keep up with inflation. And your biggest salary jumps will be when you jump from one company to the next, rather than staying at the same company for years to come. Automating your finances. I love this quote from James Clear. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And in my 15 years in finance, I've seen that few parts of life emphasize this as much as your finances. People will so often rely on willpower, thinking it will come and swoop in and save them at the end of the day. But willpower is a finite resource that usually runs out by Tuesday afternoon. And there is some interesting data to back this up. This is data from the Strava fitness app based on 800 million active users. And they've identified what they call Quitter's Day, that by the second Friday in January, this is the date when motivation typically crashes for most people's New Year's resolutions. All those people who said they were going to run every day barely last 2 weeks. Automation is the cure for this. This is just a galaxy brain chess maneuver. But for me, the real psychological breakthrough is that the automation allows you to spend your money guilt-free, knowing that you've already taken care of all the other bills, knowing that you've paid your future self. You can enjoy the present with total clarity and total confidence, knowing that your 65-year-old self is already taken care of by a system that doesn't rely on your memory or your mood. Systems will beat intention every single time. You don't know how to spend money. There are very few ways, I think, to understand a person quickly, but two of the easiest ways are looking at what they spend their money on and looking at what they spend their time doing. And that's because at the end of the day, money and time are finite resources, and so what you do with both, I think, is super revealing. Because you don't have to look too hard to see people spending money on all the wrong things. People spending money on possessions over experiences, big watches over family holidays, and getting into debt to drive a fancy car rather than living debt-free. But try reframing this thinking. Maybe focus on quality over quantity. Look at the cost per use. For example, a better quality mattress that improves your sleep for years is worth way more than a designer shirt that you'll rarely wear. Or even worse, a crummy mattress that will break your back every morning. Spend money on the things you actually enjoy and cut costs aggressively everywhere else. I shop at Primark and H&M because clothes aren't a priority for me, and that frees up money to do family days out and holidays. Or my personal favourite, do this test. If no one ever saw you using whatever it was you were about to spend money on, a big house, a fancy car, an expensive bike, would you still spend money on it? Now, I don't want people to think I'm a killjoy, so don't get me wrong. A big house when you have kids is great for building memories. Cars might be your thing, and after a bad day at the office, you get into your fancy car and it's a great way for you to decompress. And that expensive bike might be the source of all of your social life. But make sure you are buying these things for those reasons, not just to impress other people who probably couldn't give a hoot about you. Don't accept the first offer. We talked earlier on in the video about boosting your income, and one of the best ways to do this is to learn how to negotiate. And the data here is undeniable. People who negotiate end up much better off. But despite this, the evidence tells us this is something so few people are prepared to do. A survey of 6,700 professionals found that 54% said they didn't negotiate their most recent salary. But the maddest thing about all of this is that employers expect you to negotiate. In a recent survey, 84% of employers expected applicants to negotiate. 87% of employers had never rescinded offers because of negotiation. But this doesn't just apply to your income, that's the big one, but you can use it to cut your expenses. You don't need to scream at a shop attendant over the price of a Kinder Egg. Clearly, no one needs that kind of stress in their lives. But when it comes to renewing your car insurance or home insurance, finding another mortgage deal, negotiation pays fantastic dividends. And remember, the most important skill in a negotiation is to know when to walk away. Be kind to yourself. I have a video coming out next week about a massive money mistake that I made, despite having worked in finance as long as I have. Subscribe so you don't miss it. So this is a bonus one. Learning how to be kind to yourself when it comes to money is key. You don't have to flog yourself for that £50 Uber ride you took 5 years ago when you could have taken the bus but had enjoyed one too many of, insert your drink of choice here. Keep your eyes on the prize, but don't sweat the small stuff, especially when it's money that's already been spent. We have 3 videos on screen. We have tips from my sommeliers, signs you'll never be rich, and legal ways to pay less tax. You've been watching Modern Money Talk. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel.